This week, millions of Americans opened their mail and found something they'd been warned about for years. A notice from the U.S. Department of Education informing them that their wages are about to be garnished. Starting this year, the federal government is authorized to withhold up to 15% of a defaulted borrower's disposable income directly from their employer before the money ever reaches their account, with no court hearing required. Roughly 5.3 million borrowers are currently in default. That's nearly 1 in 4 student loan borrowers in this country. And here's the part that's worth sitting with. Most of them knew this was coming.
Not vaguely, not theoretically. They got emails, they saw the articles. Some of them got phone calls from their loan servicers. The warning system worked perfectly. The information landed. And still, they didn't act. So the question I want to spend the next few minutes on isn't about student loans. It's about something more uncomfortable. Why do we fail to act on warnings we fully understand? Because if you've ever known exactly what you should do and still didn't do it, this isn't about willpower. There's something else happening in your brain.
The story we tell about financial default is pretty simple. People borrow more than they can afford, they don't pay attention, and eventually it catches up with them. That story is almost entirely wrong. Research on financial avoidance, the pattern where people deliberately avoid engaging with their financial situation, even when it's hurting them, shows that the problem isn't a lack of information. It's not ignorance. Most people in default know they're in default. They know the penalties, they know the options exist. What happens instead is something psychologists call the knowing-doing gap, the space between understanding what you should do and actually doing it. And in high-stress financial situations, that gap doesn't just exist, it widens. Here's what the pattern looks like up close. You get a notice that your loan is past due. A small alarm goes off. You feel a mix of anxiety and shame. You think, I'll deal with this when I'm in a better headspace. You close the email. You open it again 3 weeks later. The feeling is worse now, so you close it again. The loan goes into default. The garnishment notice arrives. At each step, you were aware. At each step, the awareness made the avoidance worse, not better. This is not a personal failure. It's a recognizable psychological pattern, and it has a mechanism. In 2011, a team of researchers led by Shai Danziger at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that became one of the most cited findings in decision science. They weren't studying student loans. They were studying parole board decisions in Israeli prisons. They reviewed more than 1,100 judicial rulings over a 10-month period and tracked one specific variable: when in the day each decision was made. What they found was striking. Prisoners who appeared before the board at the start of the day were granted parole about 65% of the time. Prisoners who appeared late in the day were approved at rates close to 0, regardless of the nature of their offense. The judges weren't making worse decisions because they were bad at their jobs. They were making worse decisions because making decisions depletes cognitive resources. The mental energy required to evaluate risk, weigh consequences, and commit to a course of action is finite. And when that energy is low, the brain defaults to the safest, lowest effort option, which for a parole board is no. For someone managing student loan debt, the lowest effort option is the same one: don't engage. This connects to a second mechanism behavioral economists call present bias, the tendency to overweight immediate discomfort relative to future consequences. When you open a debt notice, the immediate experience is anxiety, shame, and cognitive overload. The consequence, wage garnishment, damaged credit, compounding interest, is abstract and future-dated. Your brain is not well designed to act on abstract, future-dated threats when the cost of acting right now feels so high. And here's where it gets counterintuitive. The more you care about the problem, the harder it can be to face it, because caring raises the emotional stakes of each interaction with the information. Which means avoidance isn't a sign you don't care. Sometimes it's a sign you care too much, and your nervous system is trying to protect you from that level of distress. The system doesn't care about your nervous system. It just keeps running. So, what do you actually do with this? 3 shifts. None of them require willpower, because willpower is exactly the resource that runs out first. The first shift is to make the smallest possible move. Not the right move, not the complete move, just the smallest one. For financial avoidance specifically, that means opening the account, or calling the number on the notice, or typing the loan servicer's name into a search bar. That's it. The research on what's sometimes called the Zeigarnik effect, first described by Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik in the 1920s, suggests that incomplete tasks generate persistent mental tension. Starting, even minimally, changes your relationship to the task from something I'm avoiding to something I'm in the middle of. That's a different cognitive state, and it's easier to continue something than to start it. The second shift is to externalize the decision. Willpower is a terrible financial tool. Automatic systems are much better ones. Automatic payment enrollment, income-driven repayment calculators, rehabilitation agreements where the monthly amount is set for you based on income, all of these reduce the number of decisions you have to make under cognitive load. You don't have to decide every month. You set it once, the system runs. The third shift is an identity reframe, and this one matters more than it sounds. Someone drowning in student loan debt is a stable identity. It doesn't require action. It just requires suffering. Someone who made one decision about their loans today is a different identity. It's active. It has agency. The behavior follows from the identity, not the other way around. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm saying the version of you who made one phone call is not the same version of you who didn't. When that garnishment notice lands in someone's mailbox this month, the government isn't asking whether they're ready. It's not waiting for them to feel less anxious or have a clearer head or finally get around to it. The system is indifferent to your readiness. It just executes. And the painful truth in that is also a useful one. The conditions for acting are never going to be ideal. The anxiety won't lift first. The shame won't clear first. The decision fatigue won't resolve before you open the account. You don't act because you feel ready. You feel slightly more ready because you acted. That's not motivational language. That's how the nervous system actually works. And knowing that is worth more than any repayment calculator. I want to ask you something in the comments. What's the financial task you've been putting off the longest? And what do you think is actually stopping you? I'm curious whether it matches what the research says. Until next time, keep questioning, keep growing. This is MindPrism.